Hey, thanks for stopping by and checking out this video. If you're new to my channel, this is a place where I fuse my love for all things metal and synthwave. So if that sounds like something that you dig, be sure to check out some of the covers and remixes on my channel. This video is the first of a new series I'm trying out, which is how to make music in the style of various synthwave artists that I love. And I couldn't really think of a better example than Dance with the Dead for the first one because of my love for metal and synthwave. They are kind of masters at fusing those two together. So for inspiration on this, I drew from a couple of songs on their B-Sides album, namely Blood Moon and That House. Those are some of my favorite songs of theirs. And they have a pretty similar structure. And for the most part, Dance with the Dead songs have a similar structure. Usually an intro, a couple of verses, a few choruses, sometimes a bridge or a solo section, and then an outro. They sometimes have slight variations on this, but for the most part, that's what they stick to. And in this video, I'm also not really going to dive too much into the mixing side of things, but if that's something that you'd like to learn more about, let me know in the comments and maybe I can do a follow-up. But for the most part, we're going to take a look at the production side of this. So let's dive in and take a look at the guitars first. Alright, so I've got the guitar bus open here, and the first thing you're going to notice is that these are tracked guitars. I don't want to disappoint anybody, but Dance with the Dead, of course, tracks their own guitars, and I think that's what you've got to do to get their style of music really nailed. I just don't think VSTs and the like are going to cut it. They just sound fake to me. In terms of their style of guitar, it's pretty simple for the most part. We're not dealing with technical prog metal here. You're going to see a lot of pretty simple chugging rhythm types of things, straight ahead rhythms, nothing too technically complex. They also do a lot of drop tuning. That House and Blood Moon, like I mentioned, those are in drop C. A lot of their other songs are in drop C or similar. This track here is in drop C sharp. So let's dig into the actual guitars themselves. I'll give you a listen. This first track that leads into the song is actually a bit of a background element. I call it the Eagle, and it's really just a dive bomb note on my Floyd Rose guitar. So if we solo that out, you can hear it. So I think that just adds kind of a cool touch. You hear that type of thing in the background of a lot of their tracks, and when you hear it in the mix, it sounds pretty cool. Some ear candy. So when we move into the actual rhythm guitars that kick in here in kind of the verse, you'll notice that they are really just a single string, kind of eighth note rhythm, and they sound something like this when they're soloed out. So we're just walking up the C sharp minor scale there, from the C sharp to the F sharp to the A to the B. And when we move ahead a bit, it starts to develop a bit more, less of a single string riff, more into a few strings, palm muted, mixing it in with a bit of a motif or a little riff on the A string. So that keeps pushing it forward as you move towards the chorus. And then finally, right before the chorus, I've got this little harmony part here that really ties it all together. So this extra track here is just a harmony, I think, in thirds. Going into the actual chorus, it opens up quite a bit. We keep pretty much the same chord progression, but we have these open chords, and on the A and B, instead of going up like we were in the verse in pitch, we go back down an octave on the drop A7 string. This is what that sounds like. So I think that adds some pretty cool variation. And then when we're coming out of that first chorus into the next verse, I also bring back that eagle sound, which again ties things together a bit and adds more of that ear candy. And moving into that second verse, I vary things a bit. That's generally something you want to do to continue to develop the song, but Dance with the Dead would do the same type of thing. So I vary the rhythm a bit, I vary the vibe a little bit, and that's what you get for your second verse. Beyond that, the choruses pretty much sound the same. They just build a little bit in terms of their energy as you go from the second to third chorus. The only other thing I wanted to show here was the solo. Dance with the Dead would typically put a solo in some of their songs, and I grew up playing guitar. I'm not the best, but I thought it was a good opportunity to throw one into this track as well. So first we'll listen to it in solo, and then we'll listen to it in the mix. Mix. Just to show real quick what I use to track the guitars, I'm a big fan of Neural DSP plugins like a lot of people are these days. So taking a look, I used Archetype Nolly for the rhythm patch. And then for the solo patch, also Archetype Nolly, just a different one, a little bit of shred. So we're going to move on to the drums. So with the drums, again, you're not dealing with anything too complicated. For the most part, they're keeping things pretty straightforward like they do with the guitars, so lots of 4 on the floor type of rhythms in most of their catalog. With their latest album, they got a bit more intricate, a bit more metally, if you will, but before that they were really keeping it pretty straightforward with the drums. And in terms of the sound, they either are going with like that electronic synthwavy type of sound, or they're going with the more acoustic drum kit, metal style drums. But either way, you're going to be dealing with beefy kicks, punchy snares with a good amount of low end, and the toms are almost always those nice over-the-top synth-wavy toms, and I had to throw those, of course, into the back of my solo section. They also like to throw in drum fills as transitions between sections, which I generally like to do as well, but that just keeps things really consistent. So an example of that would be here at the beginning, leading into that first rhythm guitar section. So you hear that just kind of sets up that first verse really well. If we want to take a quick look at what I actually used for the drums, this is pretty basic kit, if you will. I actually usually use drum samples, but I was playing around with that new Synthwave EZX from TuneTrack. I thought that was pretty cool. In this case, I didn't really have to do much, honestly, to get the type of sound I was looking for. I just did a little bit of EQ and some compression to beef it up a bit, and I thought it actually sounded great myself. In terms of the toms, I used a free kit. What is it? Pepto Audio makes it. I found this. This is pretty cool. They got like some basic Lindrum stuff here in this little plugin. I really dig the sounds in general, but really the tom sounds, you can get that classic vibe going from those, and I just hit those with some good reverb like you normally would. And then for the cymbals, I actually used another one of my favorites, which is the Get Good Drums. In this case, it was the GGD One Kit Wonder Metal. That's the drums, so let's move on to the synth and bass. So Dance with the Dead, they mainly use, I think, exclusively real hardware synths. I don't have a bunch of those lying around, so I used what I think is the next best thing, and that's a variety of things from the Arturia V collection. It's a great pack of software emulations of some of the most classic synthesizers, and you can generally get it on sale for like a couple $100. I highly recommend it at that price. Even, I think it's worth it at their full price at $500 or $600 or more, but I would wait for one of those sales. So this opening arpeggio that really kind of leads into the verse and really permeates the entire song, I actually drew some inspiration from another piece of music, and this is something I highly recommend, by the way, if you're struggling to come up with some writing. Think about a piece of music that you might not typically use in your own music, but maybe you can draw a cool rhythm from. So I had this for whatever reason, a little arpeggio in my head one day from that final scene in Teen Wolf, the original movie, where Scott hits the free throw to win the game and this arpeggio kicks in. That had a bit of more of a major sound to it, but I transposed it, changed a few of the notes around, and got what I think is a little bit more of this minor, darker vibe to it. So let's take a listen. And, you know, a production tip here, this is really common in synthwave and electronic music, but play around with your filters. So I have the filter opening up to lead in. I think that's a good transition into the meat of the song. Beyond that arpeggio, I have this pad that I am using the free Tyrell number 6 synth from Yuhi. This is a cool free synth. I would recommend you check that out as well. But it's just a basic pad that lays under this intro and original verse. So when you hear that together with that opening arpeggio, and then I also have this lead accent that comes in as well. That just adds a little bit extra to it. So when the chorus comes in, the main verse arpeggio melody remains, but I changed up the notes a bit and put it more into the background. The guitars take a lot of the stage as you would expect, but then also this big lead synth comes in and forms the backbone of the chorus, really the top line or the main melody there. So let's take a listen to that, and then I'll show you what I used to make that. This is just a patch from Analog Lab, which again is from Arturia, comes with the V collection. It's based off of the Pigments synth. It was really cool when I heard that, so I just had to tweak it a little bit and pop that in there. I thought it really sounded similar to some of the vibe you get in the choruses from Dance with the Dead stuff. Once the second verse comes in, I keep a similar vibe from the first verse, but change things up a bit, as I mentioned before. So we keep that same type of arpeggio that was playing through here from the start. But then I go into some more stabby type of chords to change things up and give it a different feel. So this is what those sound like. And you can see I'm layering into these atmospheric arps. Again, those are just things that I created from some synths in the V collection. The second and third choruses pretty much have the same lead melody, but on the final chorus, the only thing I really did to change that up and give it some additional excitement, since it is the final chorus, is I brought the main melody up an octave. So you've got this lower octave here, and then the notes are just doubled up one more octave. And so you get this higher sound. As compared to this from the previous choruses. That pretty much does it for the synthesizers in this track. In terms of the bass, nothing too wild going on here. It's really just one instrument going through different chords and different parts for the different parts of the song. I used this patch and I modified it from one of my favorite synths, Tal LX. I think it sounds pretty good for this, and especially with the guitars. So we'll finish off with a quick look at the effects that I used, and then we'll wrap it up. So these are the final touches, the last bits of ear candy that pull the whole thing together. Dance with the Dead, because they have that darker horror aesthetic, they like to put in some spooky effects like a woman screaming, for example. Leading into this intro here, I've got this rising, dark, moody type of sound. And then going into the chorus, from the first verse, you get this riser and then this impact. So in the mix, you get this. So it's pretty subtle, but I layer those impacts throughout different parts of the choruses just to give it that extra oomph. And then really the final thing worth calling out is this spooky thing I did here coming out of the solo, which is like this evil laugh, again, like that screaming woman example. So again, when you hear that in the mix coming out of the solo. I think it adds a nice vibe and rounds everything out. And that's pretty much it. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments section. I will play you a few minutes of this as we go out so you can hear it all together.